The soul's journey is an extension of whatever your parents didn't alchemize and you didn't sort of work through, then you're left to work through. And whatever you don't work through, your children are going to be left to work through.
Hi all, it's Zoe here. Thanks for hanging out with me again today and joining the Surviving with Zoe podcast, a conversation where amazing inspirational survivors from all walks of life share their personal stories and expert advocates educate you, our audience, in order to break stigmas and taboos regarding mental health and trauma, kind of like free therapy and permission to always give yourself grace and compassion as we are ultimately all just surviving every day. Before we dive in, we would like to add a trigger warning for anyone that is vulnerable to particular issues. Please pause if needed and check out our timestamps in our description if you need to skip ahead. Lastly, if you could please hit the subscribe button and follow us on Spotify, Apple, Instagram, and TikTok. We would really appreciate it since we are a new podcast and we need all the love we can get. And of course, we want to amplify our guests' voices. Dena Paduano is an intuitive life coach, spiritual guide, and advocate for mind-body healing. Originally from Southern California and now based in Abruzzo, Italy, Dena helps individuals gain emotional clarity and reconnect with their inner resilience through intuitive practices and personal growth work. Her journey is deeply personal, having endured 34 surgeries and living with 4 autoimmune conditions. Dena understands firsthand the profound connection between trauma, the nervous system, and physical health. Through her readings, coaching, and online presence, she empowers others to navigate adversity with grace, awareness, and spiritual grounding. Today, she joins us to explore healing, intuition, trauma, and the sacred relationship between the body and the soul. Welcome to Surviving with Zoe, Dena.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So, Dena, in your own words, why don't you take us back to the beginning of your story?
Okay, so I'm gonna make a long story short. When I was 21, I started getting just ailments, little headaches, like some chronic pain, like everything was good before then. And so at first, I had discovered I had a nodule on a thyroid. And I was like, okay, whatever. Then I started getting kidney stones. Okay, whatever. Because kidney stones I would get like once a year, it wasn't a big deal. And then when I was in my late 20s, I started getting migraines every day. And there came a point where I was getting migraines that were so debilitating, I tried unaliving myself more than once. And when I say debilitating, I was in the emergency room 3 times a week, getting pumped with morphine and all of these things, and no one could figure out what was going on with me. That lasted for 8 years. And when I say 8 years, the most debilitating years of my life. It wasn't until I went to every doctor, owed a ton of money, just with copays, just trying to figure it out. I finally got to a doctor who found out that I was having food allergies. And I had never had allergies before, anything like that. And so I had been a vegetarian since I was 20. And then all of a sudden, I had went on a diet, and someone said, "Okay, this guy's going to put you on protein, whatever." Ever since then, that's when the migraines had started. So it turns out that I became allergic to chicken and turkey because I hadn't had them for so many years. Then I went back on them. It was maybe a hormonal thing or something. Then I had formed 28 food allergies. Then after the food allergies and the migraines, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Finally, I'm getting my life back. I got neck pain and back pain. And now I was waiting on tables at the time, and I remember leaning over and then not being able to get back up from leaning over, and my back just never moved the same. Degenerative disc disease, So I've had 35 surgeries at this point now, in the sense. And then I started getting autoimmunes, and all of a sudden I had advanced rheumatoid arthritis, advanced fibromyalgia, advanced gout. I have spondylitis, and also advanced osteoporosis. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So now I was at that point, and then I moved to Italy. When I moved to Italy, I was like, they were always like, oh, you Americans, you take so many medications, there's so many issues, but
Yeah.
Italy put me on
Same,
just as
same
many
as in Australia,
medications.
like just to get the
Yeah, so
Sudafed, you
it's
need like, a full.
yeah, so it's like, wait, you put me on just as many medications as in the States. Okay, fine, and I've had 12 surgeries in
Yeah.
Italy. It wasn't until I'm going to say, let's go back a little bit in the sense is that I remember about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, seeing girls on YouTube talking about their healing journey. I was like, what the hell are they talking about? Like, what? And I remember because YouTube wasn't that big then, and I had just gotten a smart TV or Apple TV or whatever. And I was watching girls who were eating healthier and the medical medium come out. That was just the beginning of my journey. It wasn't until I got desperate enough because I was in so much chronic pain all the time and not feeling good all the time with chronic fatigue, all of these things, that I started going, wait a minute, maybe I need to start taking a look at my part in this, like what I do, instead of always going to a doctor giving my power away, right? You tell me what's wrong with me, right? Because I've spent so much money at this point. Oh, there's not this, there's not that. No, you don't need this. No, okay, no, you all are very confused.
Yeah.
So then I go get this molecular testing, and the molecular testing says I'm allergic to all these things I've never been allergic to. It's opposite. And they specifically said, make sure you don't stop eating gluten, because if you stop eating gluten, you're going to form an allergy, and then that's going to be really bad. I recently went over that molecular testing, and did you know in that molecular testing, because I put it through ChatGPT because I was going through stuff, it all said that I needed to avoid wheat products at all
Oh
costs. I
my
was very
gosh.
sensitive. So you're telling me I'd been suffering for 10 extra
Mm.
years, and you could have told me, but you specifically told me in Italy, right? So that was when I just started going, wait a minute. So I got off gluten. All of a sudden, when I got off gluten, I used to get this pain in my back that it felt like somebody was taking a 2x4 to my back, and I would always explain it to the doctor. I was like, it feels like someone has a 2x4 with nails in it and they're thwarting me in my back. They're like, I don't know, that's weird. I noticed when I stopped gluten, that stopped.
Oh my God.
And so I noticed that when I stopped gluten, I used to have these dark, dark circles under my eyes to where people used to think I had makeup from the night before on. And I remember my niece used to talk about it. And she goes, I don't know. I feel like it's from the inside. I go, I know, me too. I went to the dermatologist ever. I stopped eating gluten after like 6 months. Dark circles gone. I'm 56 years old. I don't got concealer on, but dark circles
Yeah.
gone. So I start going, wait a minute. Then someone turns me onto this app. It's called Yuka. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's an app where you scan the barcode, and
Oh, I've seen that.
it scans cosmetics, and it also scans products, right? And so I started clean eating, and then I was like on watching TikTok during COVID, and a lot of people were talking about being late diagnosed ADHD or autism
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
ADHD. And I said to my therapist, because I was 52 at the time and I'm 56 now, I said, do you think I'm autistic? I said, because I've been watching YouTube, and I feel like all those things I was misdiagnosed with, TikTok, that I was misdiagnosed with, it might be that. And he goes, well, yes, yes, I do. What the fuck were you going to tell me?
Right.
And he goes, well, you like to label yourself. We were treating the symptoms, not the
Yeah.
diagnosis. So then add ADHD neurospaciness in with all the comorbidities
Mhm.
that go along with it, makes total
Mhm.
sense that I was neurospacey, didn't know it, then therefore didn't know all of the medical issues. Turns out I have POTS and I have EDS, and it turns out that I have all these other things that are aligned with it. But if it wasn't until I figured out what was going on in
Yeah.
here, was I able to start figuring out what's going on in my body,
Right.
right? Because if you think about it, autoimmunes, I've had a very tumultuous childhood. So, sure, autoimmunes is your body attacking itself, and unresolved
Mhm.
trauma, right? Stored trauma
Absolutely.
is going to cause what? Your body to attack
Yeah.
itself.
And that's what
So,
your
add
work really means with the mind body connection.
Well, that is what made me get into the
Right.
coaching, because I'm a psychic and I've always been a psychic, right? And that's always fun. But because of my years in therapy and always helping people and everything, is that I was like, wait a minute. what's the point in cracking someone wide open if you're not going to give them any tools on what to do with it?
Hmm.
Because you could have told me a million things, but unless you're going to tell me how to fix it or what I can do, what's the point of giving me all of this information? I was watching a ton of women online going, well, I'm in my 60s and I'm just finding out I'm autistic now. What's the point? And they were pissed, and I get it. But what I'm also realizing is that when we teach ourselves how our brain works or what's going on underneath the hood, then we can understand things as more and not put ourselves next to everyone else thinking,
Right.
well, they're normal or this one's normal or that one's normal, so why aren't I normal? Just because our brain works different. Under my hood, my engine is different than your engine. Right. And so it's so important because I've released 100 pounds and it's
Oh
103
my
pounds. So I was
gosh.
230. Thank you. In 2019, I was 230. That was my, I'd like to say, rock bottom. Then I moved. I ran for the hills during COVID. I separated with my husband. And when I was here, I was like, before I was drinking to deal with pain, and then I would always justify going, well, my pain and whatever. And then I was like, I'm not going to go through a divorce drunk. So I just stopped
Right.
drinking. I read that book, The Naked Mind, Quit Like a Woman. And I was like, I'm not going to go through a divorce drunk, especially during a pandemic. And I've never been through anything like this before. And I'm in the middle of nowhere by myself with my family in the States, right? So then when I started not drinking, then I started seeing different parts of
Hmm.
myself, especially after I realized I was neurodivergent, right?
Right.
So then I started getting to know myself in a different
Love
way.
that.
So then I'm sitting here, this was 2 years ago. I'm sitting here and I hear this psychic download of like infrared sauna bag. I'm like, what's an infrared sauna bag? So I look it up. And I was like, oh, so you go in this bag, it's infrared, it goes deeper in the tissues, it helps you sweat. So I was like, it was $100 on Amazon. I was like, let me get that. Then I started watching all of these shows about people being on a sick care system or they're on all these medications that they don't need. And then I'm watching documentaries on Netflix. I mean, I have nothing but time to consume everything because we're in the middle of a
Yeah.
pandemic. So I literally ADHD brain. I'm like, wait, what was I just saying? So I'm like, I went through there, I stopped drinking. I was like, where was I going with that? Let me think with my brain, my beautiful brain.
Take your
Um,
time.
no, it's like ADHD brain fart, right? So I go with that. Then I go, oh yeah. So then I go, okay, you know what? Let me see if I need these medications that I'm on. Because I start watching a lot of podcasts about doctors talking about. I remember I'd seen Casey Means, who she and her brother Cal were on a Joe Rogan podcast. And they said most people are on, 50% of people are on medications that they don't even need. I was like, wait, what? So I was like, let me look into that, right? So then I start researching everything. I start researching all the side effects, and I had just recently been to the doctor who had put me on more medications because I was in such advanced stages of osteoporosis that he said if I fell, I was going to break every bone in my body, including my back. And I was like, okay, you're gaslighting me. And he's like, no, you don't understand how severe this is. I had a mock, the bone density was very bad. So after I had watched that podcast, I was like, you know what? With that infrared sauna bag, I'm going to wean off of these
Hmm.
medications slowly. So I went through ChatGPT, I called my doctor, and I did everything in a very slow, slow way. I got off of 11 out of 13 medications in a year.
Wow.
Okay. So I was taking antidepressants, I was taking thyroid medicine, I was taking antacid medicine, I was doing the methotrexate injections, that's chemo injections for the rheumatoid arthritis, I was taking osteoporosis medicine, you name it, I was taking it
Hmm.
3 times a day. Please tell me how, after 9 months, the doctor calls me and goes, wait, you're still not getting these other medicines. I go, yeah, no, I'm weaning off of that. He goes, no, you can't do that. You have to take these blood tests. So he sends me prescriptions for 100 blood tests.
A
I take 100 blood
100.
tests. 100 blood tests. How about this? No osteopenia or osteoporosis found. No rheumatoid arthritis or rheumatoid factors found. No gout found.
Hmm.
Wait, what? I'm fucking totally excited, right? Because I had just had a mock 9 months before, and then I went and got another mock because no one could believe it. how are you going to tell me that I was on these medicines 3 times a day for 20 freaking years and now I'm not taking these medicines and I don't have any of these issues? So then I start going deeper. The thyroid medicine I was taking, side effect osteoporosis. The rheumatoid medicine I was taking, side effect whatever, right? And they all, so of course, on a sick care system.
Yeah.
Everything I was taking was causing other issues with other parts of me.
That makes
So
me
you
think,
can
like, because my husband has fibromyalgia, and they prescribe like the muscle relaxers and everything, and
oh, I don't take any of
yeah,
that.
and
I do
he
it
had so
raw
many other
naturally.
symptoms. But anyway, sorry, continue.
No. And I'm telling you, this is a lot. This happens to a lot of us, right? And so the fact of the matter is, because I have fibromyalgia and it sucks, I take magnesium MALATE for fibromyalgia. I paid big money to an iridologist for that one, so you're welcome. But he should take that for fibromyalgia. It helps a lot. Because sometimes I get this pain in fibromyalgia. I'm sure a lot of people could understand. It's like this Velcro ripping of your skin. If I move, it feels like all my tissues ripping, and it's super painful. But I've gone to every homeopathic person to magnesium is a miracle supplement, but I've switched mostly everything over other than 2 medications to supplements, and also I've been eating very clean. So on top of I'm gluten-free, vegan, no refined sugar. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes. But on top of that, I've really created a low demand lifestyle for myself. So I walk 3, 4 miles a day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week in the pine woods or in nature. I hug trees, I do whatever, but I always have to move my body because if I don't, it creates more pain. And so what I'm saying is that I went from this young, gorgeous woman pursuing acting, right? And I thought I was going to have the life of my dreams to a whole adult life of me chasing a doctor, chronic pain, solutions, everything like that. Like it's robbed me of my 20s, 30s, 40s, right? So in my 50s is when all of the sort of healing modalities kicked in intuitively, meaning organically, homeopathically, not just going from doctor to doctor. Because I spent a good 20 years 3, 4 times a week at a specialist, especially when I was in Rome for 10 years. Oh, 2 to 3 times a week in Rome, I was at a specialist every week. I still, unfortunately, I go to the emergency room a lot because of kidney stones. But thankfully in Italy, they're so painful. Thankfully in Italy, they give you the same medicine they're going to give you at the hospital at home so that you're not taking up space. So a lot of times now, but then what happened was with the kidney stone, since last June, I've been forming them every 6 weeks. And I'm like, something's got to be happening. I mean, I've had these issues, but now I'm making them at an accelerated rate. I went to the nephrologist. I went to the urologist. I went to the doctors, of course, gaslit of that. Oh, it's not this, it's that, it's not this, it's that. Every test I came in with, she just reordered. Like, I was this, what's the point? This was in December. So I left so frustrated that I was like, yeah, no, never doing that again. So I then went and I redid all my blood tests through all of the AI. And I also think people really need to understand this about AI. AI is great, but AI lies to you a lot. And it gives you false answers. And it will tell you, oh, this is this when it's not that. So you've got to really make sure that you're checking across the board. But I put through a lot of the blood tests where the doctor missed it and a few other doctors missed it. My phosphorus was so low. And so AI, we went through this whole thing and I was like, so then I got liquid lecithin to take. That's like gives you phosphorus, and it told me how to make toasted pumpkin seeds, right? For phosphorus. So I've been doing that. Let's hope, because the last time I had a kidney stone was in the middle of January. So we're right at that mark where I would usually be making them. I'm praying that I'm going to get this under control. So the last doctor I'll go to next week will be the endocrinologist. But other than that, I've had to avoid doctors because every time I go to a doctor, all they do is put me on more medicine.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I've heard from friends similar stories, and I do want to just pause here and ask you a couple of questions, and
Mhm.
then if you feel like you want to kind of still say like a little bit more on your health journey and where you're at now, then we can do that. Um,
Okay.
so, Dina, what is crazy to me is that from all the research and everything online, women are getting diagnosed a lot later in life with ADHD or autism. And you brought up that
Uh-huh.
mind body connection, how important that is. So, I just want to say, like, congratulations for advocating for yourself with doctors
Thank you.
because it's hard to do. Like, I have trouble with it. Like, I'm a people pleaser. Like, you say that you will, but in the moment when you're in a doctor's office, it's a lot harder. And, I think it's important to advocate for yourself because it's not the doctor that's going to be up at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night in pain.
Well, and he's not in your body. He doesn't know your choices. He doesn't know your traumas. He doesn't know your stuff. And not only that, but when I went here and I told the doctor I wanted to be tested for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, he looked me in my face and he said, "Oh, that's an infant's disease. We don't test for that here."
Yeah, there's also just not enough research on these chronic illnesses and also women. Like, I mean, don't even get
Oh,
me
first, so
started
like
on
I
that.
was diagnosed with anxiety, chronic fatigue, and depression. Turns out I got off the antidepressant when I figured out how my beautiful brain works. Turns out, do you know, since I found out I was neurospacey, I haven't taken a nap during the day.
Mhm.
I am not depressed, and I don't have
Mhm.
anxieties.
Yeah,
So it was from a dysregulated nervous system, not knowing what was going on underneath my hood
right.
because the mind body is connected, not knowing that my stored trauma was causing somatic
Yeah.
issues, right? And the autoimmunes and all of the things. And then I'm supposed to now go in search of a pill who's going to fix all that for
Yeah,
me.
a magic pill. Yeah, that doesn't exist.
Um,
Yeah.
For sure. And so what I try to tell people now is I work with a lot of clients who they're going through, which I like to point out. I'm not a doctor, but it's very important for people to know their own body. Autistic burnout or neurodivergent burnout, especially if you never knew you were neurodivergent, it looks a lot like depression, anxiety, and chronic fatigue.
Interesting.
It looks a lot like you've been in a car crash and you're literally just sitting there going like, "Oh my God, I'm dealing with women who are at such burnout levels
Mhm.
that they are so desperate that me trying to talk to them about their brain, it seems like taking such the long way that they're not interested."
Yeah. It's like it's
And I
always
get
like
that. I
busy
was them.
schedules and,
Well, and all that sounds lovely, Dina, but who has time? I've got 3 kids. I've got a full-time job. I have a husband. I have friends. I have to keep moving in this life. I don't have time for
mhm.
burnout.
Yeah.
And I get that because I was them, but what I'm saying to women or men like that or people like that in general is, listen, I took the long way. I did everything I possibly could to take a shortcut.
Yes.
And then what happened is the universe said, you're going to have to redo all of
Yeah.
that. So when I moved to Abruzzo from Rome during the pandemic, I didn't realize that I was going to do regression.
Mhm.
And I remember just sitting over the kitchen sink doing the dishes and literally being like, wait a minute. So it was never about having more
Mhm.
stuff. It was never about a bigger car, a better house, a better job, a better. That's all like conditioning. And I just remember having mini awakenings here and there,
Yeah.
going, wait a minute. Wait, so I'm supposed to take this medication because why? And then I remember I was sitting there and a doctor wanted to put me on biologics.
Mhm.
And I said, universe, give me a sign if this is for me or not for me. And it was like Humira or something. I don't know what that was. I went to go do the injection. I guess I did it wrong. And the whole injection shot in the air because you're supposed to put the needle. And I guess like I hit the thing wrong and it was turned the wrong way. The whole injection shot in the air.
Wow.
I was like, okay, universe, that's a sign. So I didn't go on them, and I'm actually grateful that I didn't go on them. Not saying that people who need them shouldn't go on
Mhm.
them. I'm just saying for me, because how you going to tell me I was going to take that for rheumatoid arthritis, but when I stopped taking other medication, the
Right.
rheumatoid arthritis went away.
Yeah, and
So imagine what that would have done to me on top of everything
right.
else.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting how the universe like it stops you and it says, "Okay, you've made enough mistakes. So I'm going to show you a really big sign so that you'll stop making the mistakes and actually listen to me and try like going left instead of right." Which is
For sure.
really
Well, it's
hard.
like the listening,
Yeah.
right? It's rejection
Yeah.
is redirection is protection and rejection is
Mhm.
protection, meaning redirection. So think of like your GPS. It says recalculating route,
Mhm.
right? It's not saying we're rejecting you from everything. We're just recalculating you to go in a different direction. That's why I do the mindset, right? Is that you and I could both say, okay, we're going to go to Los Angeles, right? But you're going to take the chaotic route and I'm going to take the scenic route when the destination is the same. But why do some people choose the chaotic route? Because that's all they know. That's all
Or
that's
what
in their
they think that
mindset.
they
That's all they've ever been
deserve.
taught. Well, or they don't know it's an
Ah,
option to think
yeah, that's
differently.
true.
I didn't know I was
Mhm.
allowed to not be panicked. I remember when I was a kid and my mom used to go, everyone needs to stop. We can't pay the rent or we need to figure this out. So no one's moving until this gets done. And because I'm autistic and I didn't know it, I'm a literal person. So I didn't understand when people would say they were so broke or they were so this or so that they were out still doing stuff. I didn't know that was an
Mhm.
option.
Yeah.
I didn't know my mindset that I wasn't supposed to gaslight myself
Mhm.
about myself medically. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh my
Yeah.
God, what's happening? Oh my God, this is so bad. Oh my God. I didn't know that that's not what, because that's what we were
And
told.
it's also like that's your inner dialogue as a child. You're always going to blame yourself, and that carries on throughout life. And I'm glad that you brought up your past because I'd love to ask you, with all of the like trauma that shows up as an adult in your body, and then, sadly, like you attempting to take your life, like over feeling so helpless, which I'm so sorry to hear. Are you able to tell
Thank
us,
you.
like, in as much or little detail as you feel comfortable with, like what was your trauma like in your childhood and how did it show
Sure.
up in your body? Because for those listening, they might not even know like how trauma is
Oh,
showing.
no, totally. I get that because I didn't even know that's what that was until I was in therapy for a good 15 years,
Mhm.
right? But so I had a very unfortunate, tumultuous childhood where there was a lot of physical abuse, sexual abuse. There was a lot of verbal abuse. Then there, let's say, was a little bit of other things going on, right? But what I can say is that I think that autism and ADHD actually kind of saved me because out of sight, out of mind. And so I didn't understand when another sibling, all they ever do is bring it up. And I was like, why do you always think about that all the time? But I didn't realize just because I wasn't thinking about it didn't mean my body wasn't holding it.
Interesting.
So what I would explain to my therapist is I would be like, my mind logically says this is not right, this is not whatever, but my body feels afraid. It would tighten up, it would clutch. So the best experience I could give is I would go to parties with friends, and if people were doing drugs, I'm so intuitive, pattern recognition, everything. My sphincter would get tight, my whole body, and I'd be like, very uncomfortable here. We got to go. And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, yep, my sphincter's tight. People are doing drugs. Gots to go. And I didn't even know back then that that's what that was,
Mhm.
right? But what I was doing is I was picking up on energies in the room.
Mhm.
And that was before I even knew about my gifts and all of that and was doing the psychic work, right? But then I would get around certain people. And I remember too, how did we not know I was autistic? I remember I would call friends and they'd be like, come over. And I go, who's there? And they'd be like, what do you mean, who's here? Because energetically in my brain, I needed to know if I was willing to come over with that energy of whoever was there. But also, probably turns out that that was my PTSD talking,
Mhm.
right? And the trauma wanting to make sure it was a safe
Yeah,
space.
absolutely. Because it's like it's
And
draining for you, like to be hyper vigilant and aware, which is a normal symptom with childhood trauma because you're assessing the danger in the environment.
Yes, but you're also told you're so sensitive. You're too
Yeah,
sensitive. Oh my
yeah,
God, you're being. I can remember every guy. Oh my God, Dina, you're so overreactive. You're so sensitive, says every narcissist,
yeah.
right? But literally, I just remember hearing all of those kinds of things of it was always me. I was always too sensitive. I was always overreacting. And I was always the one to call things out when I would
Mm.
sit and watch boyfriends talk to their girlfriends, probably the neurospicy in me. I'd be like, that doesn't make sense. I wasn't trying to be a bitch, but I would literally in the facial expression, that doesn't make sense. Like, no, because you said this or that. And, but that's the pattern
Yeah.
recognition, always having to observe, always having to protect. Another thing that I do till this day in my notes app, I write everything down, even when I pay my rent, even when I do whatever. Because I don't want to get accused. Because so many people have accused me of shit, and I'll be like, sorry for you. Blah, 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 blah,
Well,
blah. We got this, this,
you're
this, and
making me
this.
laugh because I know so many neurodivergent people. I know that justice is like a huge thing for neurodivergent people. So I love that you're like gathering evidence.
I went to the vet the other day and she tried to tell me that they said something at a vet visit and lady didn't know I recorded the fucking visit. And I was like, but. So I called the husband and I said, sir, my husband, and I said, they're trying to say this. And he said, excuse me, lady, I heard the whole message. You did not say
Yeah,
that. You said
yeah,
this. And the lady shut her mouth real quick,
yeah,
but still till this day, I do that for the sense of injustice
yeah.
is a
It
thing,
is.
right? I don't like being accused of anything. I want proof of things, but that is still that child in me
Yeah,
that is so afraid of
yeah.
getting accused. So even though I've done the therapy, done the work, some things are just going to stay, and that's okay because that makes me
Hmm.
comfortable.
Yeah,
So I'm doing it as a protector,
yeah,
not as a fear thing. When before I was doing it as
yeah.
fear. So what I'm saying is some people, it doesn't mean you have to take away the thing completely. It just means that we have to rewire it in a different way. That's for my
Yeah,
protection.
definitely.
Right. And so I show up for myself different in the sense is like before when I used to talk to myself because I pursued acting for so long and then I was told by so many, you're not pretty enough, you'll never be leading lady, you're too heavy, you're too this. And now I'm like, you're amazing. I love you. Oh my God, you're so. The way I talk to myself is the way a proud parent would talk to their child. And I never got
Yeah.
that. I never got that from any of my parents or for any older person
Mhm,
in my life.
mhm.
So, how about I give that to me?
Yeah, and you become like
How
almost
about
like
I show up for
your
me?
own parent and your own best friend. It's like that's like
Yes.
I saw like some. I'm not a huge fan of Dr. Phil, but I remember watching an episode on like Super Soul Sunday with him and Oprah, and he was like, "You really have to like speak to yourself as if you're like a protective best friend." And like in my
Yes.
16-year-old brain, that clicked. I was like, I would never like say the things I'm saying to myself to my best friend, like, but to yourself,
For
like
sure.
it's like mastering that inner dialogue. So no, thank you so much for sharing that with me. You've been through so much um and endured so much with this stored trauma. Just for our listeners, what are some other ways that it started to like come out as you were older?
Um, okay. I was getting lesions on my legs. They had no idea what they were from. I got biopsies, everything. No one ever had answers or anything.
Yeah,
It's lesions all down the
yeah.
legs. Um, I would had panic attacks always, which and I always used to have these breathing issues, which it turns out that is from the hypermobile,
Mhm.
right? And it's like all pots, like all of these things that everyone was telling me, you're just too anxious, you stress out too much, you're too sensitive, you're too this, you're too that, you're. I I learned that for a long time I used to think that I was an outsider and that no one wanted me around. But now that I know that I'm neurospacey, is that I actually can't be around a lot of people because I absorb not just their stress, their anxieties, but their shit.
Yeah,
So I have to be very careful of who I share my energy
yeah.
with, especially when I'm unmasked, because
Mhm.
that will come up in an area is like I can't be disarmed and then all of a sudden something pops up and then I'll be like, oh my God, see, this is why I don't go out. This is why I don't
Yeah,
do this is why.
yeah, and then you've almost got like an emotional hangover for the next couple of days because you have to do the inner work to work yourself out of like, oh God, what did I say? Like, how did I present myself? And for our listeners that don't know what masking is, can you just explain a little bit about what unmasking and masking is?
Well, what masking for me is that when I would go into public situations, because I didn't even know what masking was until I found
Right.
out it was
Yeah.
neurospacey, right? Is that I would mimic other people's behaviors. I would rehearse conversations in my head before I would have them. So then that's why I don't do well with spontaneity,
Yeah.
right? People change plans. It's like, wait a minute, I already rehearsed all of this for days, right? And so it's like people think you're trying to be difficult. I'm not being difficult. So what I've had to learn is to become emotionally flexible,
Yes.
to allow myself to understand that people aren't doing it on purpose. And that's also where that inner child talk has to come in, is that I have to encourage and reinforce in her that I'm not leaving her. And there were many times when I was doing some Joe Dispenza meditations and they were doing the inner child stuff, and I would see the inner child like this, and I would start wailing out of my chest, and I was like, what is wrong? And she's like, you've left me alone with so many big emotions for so long, and I'm just a kid, and you never came back. And I started thinking about it when the sexual abuse started. I was, 6, 7, right? So I learned how to abandon my body
Yeah.
at a very young
So you learn
age.
to
And
survive.
for sure. But then anytime something else came up, I didn't understand. I was always abandoning my body and leaving her alone.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're like, oh, it's something sexual or something stressful. No, it's all the same. The behavior's the same. So I'm constantly abandoning myself. And then by abandoning myself, what I would do is, because I was sexually abused and I didn't realize I was autistic, I hyperfixated on sex and I became
Yeah.
promiscuous because in my beautiful brain, I was like, oh, sex is power.
Yeah.
But then when I would go out there and I would be promiscuous, then I would drink to regulate my nervous
Yeah.
system.
Thank you so
And so then you've got all these things going on top of you've never dealt with the root issue.
Yes. And I just want to point out to our guests that, victims of sexual assault, especially at a young age, either go down two paths. They go down like controlling the narrative, which is what you're talking about with like, I'm never going to be controlled again sexually. So being promiscuous or being like the almost like the aggressor, like, and
Well, in my brain, it was taking my power
yes,
back. You're not going to tell me to
yes.
fuck you. I'm going
Not
to
an
decide
aggressor in
whether
like
I
an
fuck
abusive
you.
way, but like you're not going
Yeah.
to initiate with me. I'm going to initiate with you. And then the other
Hmm.
path is like fawning and like kind of like stepping back and completely avoiding it. So
Hmm.
and when you were talking about how your sibling had like a completely different experience of things, and you're like, why are you talking about it? I think that that's really normal as well because everyone experiences abuse differently, and I'm very careful to label like that as avoidant behavior because it sounds like very judgmental, like, oh, you're avoiding this or that. But
Well, no, it's neurospicy and
yes,
neurotypical
yeah,
in my
yeah,
experience, right? So neurospicy, sometimes out of sight, out of mind.
yeah,
Neurotypical, you'll think of it because they don't have that function in the
yes.
brain, the switch out of sight, out
Yes,
of
and
mind.
and each path is like great because you're dealing with it in the way that your brain will allow you to, and you're
Yes.
surviving because of that. And just because you're not talking about it, Dina's not talking about it growing up, doesn't mean that you didn't have coping mechanisms. However, that kind of took you away from feeling that in your body, and then the stored trauma comes out later, which is what you're talking about with like the lesions on your legs and the breathing issues are very common with childhood sexual abuse. So again, thank you so much for sharing that, and I hope that anyone listening that maybe is like, like, do I have any stored trauma? Or am I neurodivergent? Or am I dealing
Or
with
anyone
this?
who suffered in
Yeah.
silence, just in
Yes.
general, pushing down any kind of emotion and silencing it without expressing it is going to come to stored trauma, is
Yeah.
going to create stored
Yes,
trauma.
and people don't realize that when they think of sexual abuse or domestic violence or something, they think, oh, like the actual physical act of it must have been the hardest. But in lots of different victims, and survivors' minds, it's actually the emotional part of it that is stronger than the physical part. It's not for everyone, but the majority that I've heard, it's the
For sure.
emotional stuff that you have to unravel and like make peace with, and like you said, like talk to yourself with respect because like an adult didn't. So thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing that.
You're
You've
welcome.
really inspired me. I do want to quickly pause and talk about
Okay.
Italy. Um,
Okay. Let's do it.
so, you grew up in Southern California and you moved to Italy, and it sounds like you've lived in a few different places in Italy. And I find this really interesting, not only because I shared with you offline, like it's my dream. I think it's everyone's dream. Like everyone watches like
Uh-huh.
Eat, Pray, Love, or like what is it, the like Tuscany movie with the woman.
Yeah, under the Tuscan
Yeah.
sun. Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
but I think it's interesting learning your story because it seemed like you're really like stepping into who you're meant to be because of the struggles in your life. And it kind of aligns because Italy and Europe in general has natural ingredients, a slower way of life, like anti
Oh, girl, let's get
burnout.
into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Italy, my Italian story is, I swear to God, I was telling my dad the other day that I'm sure because I met my ex in the States in 1998. I was working at a restaurant in Marina del Rey. And then I had given him my headshot because I was pursuing acting then. And then 10 years later, he was moving out of his parents' house to his very first apartment at 38 years old. And he found my headshot and he Googled me. And so then he writes me on my work email and he was like, "Hi, I'm Marco from Rome. Do you remember me?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I remember you." And back then, it was 2008. So you could only have megabytes on, and there was Skype. So you could only video chat for like less than 5 minutes, right? And so then we were together. I came here for a month. He came there. Then we broke up. Then 2 years later, my dogs died 3 weeks apart from each other that I had for 15 years. And he came, and then we got married, and I moved to Rome. Now, um, when I first moved to Rome, I thought the same thing, eat, pray, love, whatever. But then I wound up gaining 60 pounds because I eat, prayed, and loved everything. I eat, prayed, and drank over wine, over pasta, over cheese. I ate to my like I ate my way through that city for 10 years. And I'll tell you, that was the first time in my life that I wasn't super stressed about money and things. It was very simple, one bedroom apartment, living a very simple life. But everything is just about food, simplicity, everything here. It wasn't until I got out of Rome and COVID hit. I now live in a blue zone.
Oh,
Abruzzo is the most
right.
untouched
Yes, I
region in
know
all
about
of Europe.
this. Yeah, the
Yes. And so,
documentary.
right, go bigger, go home, go bigger, go Rome. But in Abruzzo, it's considered the lungs of Europe. And so it's the most untouched region in all of Europe. And so I was like, I live in a farming town because my ex's family lives 15 minutes from me. And I was like, when we were thinking about where I was going to move, I didn't want to live in Rome because the city had such heavy energy to me and it's got such history, right? And I would always say, I don't know why I always feel better when I go to your parents. I could sleep better, I breathe better, everything's just better. And then I live in a town of 44,000 where his parents live in a town of 3,000 that's 20 minutes away. So I was like, why didn't I move to that town? And then he looked at me and goes, "You would move there?" And I was like, "Yes, I would." And so I did. And so I live in a farming town where they cut out the middleman. So you have an app where you can go straight to the farmers and get your fruits and vegetables. And I just started walking like Forrest Gump during COVID. right? I just everywhere. I would walk for hours and hours and then I would be like, and I'm done for today. And then I would walk home. And when I say I walked for 6 years straight, I'm still walking 6 years straight every single day. I didn't miss a day. And then the weight started releasing and then I started feeling better. Then I stopped the drinking. And then after I stopped the drinking, then I think it was in in the middle of 2021, then I became full vegan. I was already vegetarian since I'm 20, but then full vegan. And then I stopped the gluten 6 months after that. And so then it's the lifestyle. I live next to the pine woods and I go walking in the pine woods every day and I hug trees and I take my dogs and I literally have such a low demand lifestyle that I had to read books, listen to books, How to Do Nothing, Escaping Capitalism.
Right.
And because it's what do you mean it's Wednesday at 10 a.m. and you still haven't made money? What are you going to do all
Right.
day? What are you doing with your life today? Now, something that anyone should know about me is you will always catch me looking good. And this is for me because of chronic
Yes,
pain.
I've
If you
heard
look good,
that.
you
Yeah.
feel good, you act
Yeah.
good. Right? So I live my life by that. If I look in the mirror and I look as bad as I feel, all of a sudden my disposition goes, oh my God, I feel like such shit. Right. But if I look in the mirror, I'm like, damn, Dina, you look good today, girl. Like, what's that? Right. Or when I want to film content, if I go to put up the camera and I'm not in the mood, I'm not filming
Yes,
content at all
absolutely.
in that day. Right. So I put systems in place to set myself up for success. So for me, lip gloss and mascara goes a
Yeah.
long way. And so for me, no matter what time, like this morning, I was fully dressed, ready by 7:15. Didn't mean I didn't go back and lay in bed for a couple hours, but I was dressed and ready for the day because I realized that that stresses me out. If someone's going to show up at the door, what if someone needs a reading all of a sudden? What if someone's at, no, no, I'm ready for all of
Yeah.
that. But these are systems that help me. I'm not doing it for vanity
Yes.
purposes. I'm doing it because of the daily beatings I would get, and the door would be open. What the fuck are you doing? Get your ass up, blah, blah, blah. That is for me to calm my own nervous system down. And I don't know if I'll ever get over that because now I've, I've done a pivot and a mindset shift. So I no longer attach that to that. But what I do is I still work through it and I'm like, you're okay. I still have to calm myself down and talk to myself. It never goes away completely. It's forming a long-term relationship with yourself, for yourself, about
Mhm.
yourself, right? And so I don't get hard on myself on the days that I'm extra anxious. I go, you okay?
Yeah.
Like, tell me, how can I show up for you? Like, baby girl, you're not yourself right now. Okay, I got us. Just let me know what you
Yeah.
need. And so instead of just push through, no pain, no gain, nah, that doesn't exist for people like
Yeah.
me. Because just pushing through means I'm going to not listen to the pain my body has
Yeah.
and I'm going to push through.
That's like toxic
Wait,
positivity, which I hate. It's like only
right?
good vibes, like, it's just like I hate when people say like
No.
you're gonna be fine, like or like you just have to be in control of your emotions. Like no, like you have to acknowledge them because that is your inner child screaming for
Well, and you have to
acknowledgement.
let me see that you see
Yeah.
me.
Hmm.
That you see me in the sense is that so many people listen, and I don't fault anyone because I was where a lot of people are, right? I didn't even get to where I am until I was in my mid 50s. So it's not like I'm sitting there going, do what I no, I went through all of that stuff, so a lot of people hopefully won't have
Hmm.
to, right? But what I'm saying is that I took the long
Yeah.
way, every single way or shortcut that I thought I could take to bypass, I would try to take. But then what would happen is it would take me further out of my way.
Yeah.
And then I would literally wind up right back what I started. It's like when people take, let's say, Ozempic, and then they gain 20 pounds. Like I was talking to someone the other day who told me she gained 20 pounds that she never even had before
Mm.
Ozempic. So now she's worse off than when she started
Yeah.
because she gained 20 pounds she didn't even have
Right.
after she stopped it.
And it's like
Right?
with
So
Ozempic too, like I don't judge anyone who takes Ozempic because like there are people that actually were offered it before it was a big thing, but for their health issues, like insulin issues or pre-diabetes.
absolutely.
But it's like there's so many people taking it that don't have those health issues. And it's like
For
And
sure,
like,
because they're being
yes.
sold a
So
story.
it's confusing because it's like, why would you take something if you're not diagnosed for that health issue? Like, it's just,
Because people don't know how desperate a woman is when we've been gaslit our
yeah,
whole lives about our body, that how important it is for us to be thin. I was telling my ex, there isn't anything I wouldn't have done to get thin. So I'm so grateful that I went on
yeah,
this journey before Ozempic came out, because I would have been one of those people taking
yeah.
Ozempic
And but it's like, honestly,
easily.
like the what works for someone, like I don't judge, like but yeah, you're right, it's like you've got to like be in tune with your body and also not listen to doctors and make the right decisions for you. I do just have to pause here, Dina, just because I want to make sure we have time to go over like your work and coaching.
Okay. All right.
I
Cool.
did want to just touch on, so I just wanted to tell our audience about what blue zones are, in case they don't
Uh-huh.
know. So blue zones are places in the world where people are living the longest. Um,
The
yes,
longevity. Yeah.
and Abruzzo is one of them. So if you haven't seen the Blue Zones documentary, go and see it because it's one of my favorite parts of the documentary. And I wanted to ask you specifically, because I found this interesting, like in Italy, that they are sensitive to gluten allergies, which you wouldn't think that they are. Like if you're traveling and you have a gluten intolerance, there's actually a lot of gluten-free food in Italy. Or am I like incorrect
So
saying
much
that? Okay, so
gluten-free
I'm right
food
saying
that,
that. Yeah,
well, and a lot of people who have gluten sensitivities in the United States don't have that same
yes,
sensitivity in Italy.
yes.
And then there's also too is like even in my small town, it's amazing. There's these girls that are all under 35, and it's only women run, and they all are gluten sensitive or celiac. They run a pasticceria, so they make lasagna and
Mhm.
pasta and pizza and bakery goods and brownies and yummy, yummy, yummy things. And that's in my tiny town. But then there's also like five other restaurants on top of in Rome. There's so many there's this one restaurant that I love where they have two restaurants, but one has the exact same menu as the other, but one is completely gluten free. But they have to have separate kitchens, so they have two separate rooms and two
Right,
separate kitchens in the
yeah,
same
because people
restaurant.
aren't strict with that. So,
Yeah, and so, but oh my God, are you kidding? Where I live, there's so many, and you know what it is that I remember when I first moved here, and I had this girl who did my eyelashes, and she was Russian. She goes, "You Americans, you eat too elaborate," and I was like, "F you, bitch! I don't know what are you talking about?" Like, and now I'm one of those Italians where I haven't had ketchup in 15
yeah,
years. I don't eat mayonnaise, and if I eat mayonnaise, I make my own with olive
yeah,
oil and some garlic powder and
yeah,
little like that's it. On top of that, I don't eat a lot of tomato sauce like I used to, and I don't do chips and salsa
yeah,
anymore. There are just certain things that your taste buds
yes,
change.
yeah.
I actually like
Oh,
things
I
very
get it.
simple now. When before
I get
I
it.
was Taco Bell queen,
Yeah.
and now I'm like I can't. I have to eat just so
Yeah,
simple.
like for me, it's the opposite because obviously I was lucky enough to grow up in Australia and I've traveled to so many different places. And like you said, I never get sick eating carbonara in Australia ever. Like
Uh-huh.
ever. But here, like I've gotten unhealthier, put on weight, and I almost have to catch myself sometimes, especially with like having kids soon. I'm like, I don't want my kids, even though they're not growing up in Australia, to have all this junk in their bodies because like with the FDA, like with like America just not following like the rules like with health and things that are in food like so I'm right there with you and I love that your like soul is Italian now and even though you
For sure. Well, I'm Italian already, and I used to call my dad going, Italians from Italy are not the same as New York
are you
Italians.
really
New
okay,
York
okay, nice.
is very different, but I will say this is that I know that Marco came to save me from the United States, meaning when he met me in 1998 and then he found me 10 years later, and then not even until 2 years after that, 10 years, who knew eventually it was to take me back to the town where his
Yeah,
family was from, right? So if we want to do some eat, pray,
yeah.
love, ancestral,
The
like all this,
alchemist
um,
almost.
I did Right. Well, I did my ancestry while I was here, right? And a grandfather I never knew I had that was my mom's real dad. My mom passed away in 2000 and she never knew her real dad. Turns out that that man is from the region I'm living in
No
right now.
way. That's
Yes, and it's so
crazy.
interesting to me because my ex-husband's mom has the same name as my mom, and my mom died in 2000.
Oh,
So the universe guides were like, you didn't think just because your mom died, you weren't going to have to not do all of this work, did you? And so they have the same name. So her and I have rebuilt our friendship and our relationship, and I've been doing some healing with
yeah.
that, right? And then the news I found out about the grandmas from here, I was like, oh, well, clearly, I'm sure. I said, oh, I'll go clean up that mess and that mess and that mess and that mess. But it is interesting ancestrally that I wound
Yeah.
up back where the roots
Yeah, no,
started.
I feel the same way about South Africa. My family left during the apartheid and they didn't want anything to do with South Africa, my grandparents. And I went back there just like casually on a school trip and I like felt at home there. Like I was like, so my husband ended up proposing to me there and we got married there and it's just such a special place in my heart. Like I'll always go back. And but like I no one has connected me to it, just me. So it's like, and I brought my mum
Wow.
back for the first time in like 40 years. She was born there and she made peace with it. So I'm right there with you. I think it's like our DNA is deeper than we realize. And it's like we end up becoming like our parents, like even if we don't realize that we're becoming like,
Well, you figure out the soul's journey,
yeah.
right? So the soul's journey is an extension of whatever your parents didn't alchemize and you didn't sort of work through, then you're left to work through. And whatever you don't work through, your children are going to be left to
Yes,
work through.
exactly. Like generational trauma 101.
So I'm doing all of this for my nieces and nephews. I don't have kids of my own, unfortunately, right? So I have 11 nieces and nephews, and I'm doing all of this. So hopefully they won't have to do the
Yeah.
intensity. Now, I don't know what their parents are doing because unfortunately I don't talk to them.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, energetically and everything, there is always something to be cleared and something to be done energetically to show up for ourselves in
I
different
love that.
ways.
And there's also different ways to mother. Like you don't have to have
Yes.
kids to mother. So I really love
No.
that for you. And I'm the same way. I'm like the black sheep of my family. So I hope that whatever I do in life, can help other people. Because like you wanted that help when you were younger and you didn't get it.
Yep.
So I really do that.
For sure. And I've had the same therapist for 30
Oh, I'm
years.
jealous.
And
Where are
so
they
he's like,
located?
he's in California. And you want to know what's crazy is this is where if we go into the soul's journey, and there's always signs, and the soul's journey for anyone who's listening is when you're woo woo and all of that, you believe that you came here to work through stuff, alchemize stuff, and that you had a sort of plan of what you were going to accomplish when you were down here. My dad, when I was younger, we used to say he went to college, prison, right? And when I went to my therapist, the first day I went to this new therapist someone introduced me to, there's this place called San Pedro in California, and you go to San Pedro, and there's this prison called Terminal Island. His office was literally, I don't know, 4 miles from Terminal Island. So as I'm going over that bridge, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Because what, 40 years, well, not 40 years, at 26 years later, I was going to therapy to the place where my dad was in prison, where it kind of all started. Right? So kind of like how I'm now in Abruzzo, the signs were always there. Like, here's a memory marker because I lived in Brentwood at the time, so it wouldn't make sense that I would go to San
Oh,
Pedro for
right.
therapy, and he only had me go that one day. He's usually in Marina del Rey, but his main office was there. So that one day I'm going over the bridge and I'm doing that, and I was like, oh shit,
Yeah, that's
okay.
a hike.
So reminders, memories started clicking in, or things started clicking in, or people that you see and you're like, I feel like we've known each other before. Memory markers, right? And so I know that everything happens for reasons or things and creating boundaries and setting things up, but now it just happens quicker.
Absolutely.
So now what I learn is I don't add narrative. So what I want to leave people with is this is why I do the coaching and everything, is that all of this is great to watch someone else's perspective. I really encourage anyone who's watching, start becoming the observer of your life. Start showing up for yourself in a different way without judging yourself. Sit back and just see how you show up. See how you think. See how you feel. See what's running through your head when somebody does something disrespectful to you. See if you speak up. See if you don't speak up. See if you overreact. Once you start observing it, then you could start going, hey, why aren't we speaking up over here? Hey, why do we let that person talk to us like that? Instead of going, fuck them, we don't deserve. No, no, no. You start taking inventory and you start gathering information. And then you start showing up going, so I'll have clients text me every time you're talking bad about yourself. I'm not judging. I want you to text me whatever you were going to say to yourself. I've had some people text me 78 times in a day. I've had some people text me 3 times in a day. But people start to get the message of like, oh God, I'm really not nice to myself. Oh God, so imagine you keep re-injuring all of that stored trauma because now your kid is also afraid of you because you're not protecting you from you because now you're becoming the abuser by gaslighting, not paying attention, not parenting me, not protecting me, not loving
I
me,
never
not
thought of
doing all
it that way. And it's like almost like why your mind is in conflict because you're splitting yourself into those two parts instead of like,
Well, because we were conditioned to.
mhm,
We were conditioned to listen to everything out there and don't listen to anything in
yeah,
here. So it's conflict, right? My body's feeling one thing, my mind's feeling
mhm,
another. But wait, it's not until you become in sync and then you start to go, do I like this? Do I not? Do I like this? Oh, no, don't like that. No, really like that. No, we're going to go back to the flow. We're going to go back to the flow. So now I don't get, because I can hyperfixate, right? And I could get obsessive and I can fawn and I can do all this shit. And then I realized I used to give pretty privilege and I used to let pretty people get away with a lot of shit because they were pretty, right? And then I start seeing all these things and I was like, so then the last couple of weeks, a few things have happened where one day, because the tism, and I think that my social cues are off or whatever. So I had plans with this girl, and then 10 minutes before I was going to pick her up, I wrote her something, and then she writes, oh, I decided I prefer to ride my bike today. We'll talk another day. Have a nice day. And I was like, am I off or but I literally still, and this was just 2 weeks ago, I had to say this to myself. I'm like, you're okay, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, that was a little rude.
yeah.
And that did feel
They
a
didn't
little
consider
off.
you. Yeah.
For sure, but tell my inner child, my inner autistic that, right? But then tell the one who hates injustice, the
Right.
ADHD in me is like, fuck that bitch. We're gonna get her, fucking bitch. Block her, right? And then I'm like, no, no, we can calm down, right? And then I meet someone a couple days later in the market. Turns out he's Italian and he just moved back from living in LA for 20 years with his American wife. And then, of course, social cues. I wasn't thinking about anything, whatever, because he was married or like whatever. And then he kept saying, "No, thank God my wife's not jealous. She's not this. She's not." So we were gonna go hiking the next day with his wife. So then I called him. He seemed a little startled that I called. Clearly, in that moment, I realized. And then he writes back, "Oh, sorry, no hike tomorrow." Never heard from the guy since. That was last Thursday. And I was like, so then something happened at the vet where the vet tried grinding me for money and then tried pulling something on me where she told me I had to come there because their system is down. But when I went there, she just made me come there because she wanted me to use her pharmacy, not my pharmacy.
Interesting.
And I was like, okay, wait a minute, bitch. So there'll be lots of things happening at the same time. There are times I can observe and times I can't stop my ADHD Dina, and I'm going to let her go at it. So in that moment, ADHD Dina had our backs, and she was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. And the lady kept yelling at me, going, this is my business. You have to buy. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, now, no, for sure that's
Yeah,
not
it's
happening.
like training your
And
inner child to speak up, but in a respectful way, not lose your
yes,
cool.
yes.
And I just want to pause here, Dana, if that's okay, because I do
Hmm.
just want to transition into your work and coaching.
Okay, cool.
So talking about your readings that you do with clients and your
Uh-huh.
spirituality. Can you explain to our audience like how that came about and what does that entail like for you when you're doing readings with someone or leaning on your spirituality like being psychic, and how do you help people?
Okay. So for me, I was so lucky that I have a godmother who's a world-renowned psychic. So at a very young age, she introduced me to metaphysics,
Mhm.
manifestation, everything from when I was 9. And yeah, I was pretty serious about everything, but not until I really moved to Italy and I started to get to know myself more and all of that. But she used to always say to me, you're going to surpass me because of your experience with therapy. Right. And so I've always been somebody who always coached people, helped people, gave great advice to people because I can see a different perspective.
Mhm.
Right. I can probably because I can feel what you're feeling.
Right.
So for me, it's not about telling you a bunch of, oh, you're going to get a shiny new car and a new job and a new this. No, I want to help you so that I become a part of your past, not a part of your future, in the sense is I want to teach you how to tap into you about you, right? So that you can start to hear you, you can feel you, you can listen to you. So a lot of people, when we're talking, I sometimes will just pull things right out of their brain, not that I'm doing it purposefully, but sometimes I think that the guides universe helps me do that to give people confirmation that we're connected, we're in the space together, because I think a lot of people need proof
Yeah.
because there is so much fake stuff and people are like, oh, well, anyone could say that. Well, yeah, but do you feel it? Do you feel what I'm saying? Do you tap into that? You know what I mean? So I really am trying to teach people how to tap into their own spirituality so that they can create a practice for themselves so that a session with me isn't a one-off. That's why I did do the coaching, is because readings are fun, but then people would come every 3 months and that's really great. Some people come once a year and I still have those people. But with the coaching, it's more like, imagine that you're going to stay in alignment. So, when you get your cars rotated, then you get your alignment checked. This is like accelerated therapy, but then we're adding the woo woo and the spiritual connection, meaning that we're going to go straight to the problem wherever you're at today. We're not going to pick up where we left off from last week or the week before. We're going to tune in to where you're at today to get you back in alignment to where it is that you need to go so that you can get back on the road again and keep going in the direction you
I
need to
like
go in.
that because I used to be like a person that if I went to therapy, I'd come with like a notebook and I'd be like, I need to tell you every single thing about my past and blah, blah, blah. And I am that annoying, like self aware client that can't feel feelings in my body, like because I'm
For
so
sure.
self-aware. And I think that it's important for people to tackle like what they're going through now because or in the moment because it's almost like they're reliving their trauma like in some way
For sure.
every
Well,
day.
and I've had therapists who literally get in touch with me, people's therapists. And because I tend to help accelerate people's therapy with their therapist, in the sense is that I will do something that the therapist that only sees them once a
Mhm.
week can't do, or whatever, for professional reasons can't say, or certain things. So I always go hand in hand with the therapist. So I've had therapists call me recently and ask for my information so that they could recommend me to other
Oh, that's
clients.
good.
And so, because I don't take away from the therapy, I think of it as like an add on.
Right, but it's also like interesting that, like cognitive behavioral therapy like just focuses on like the mind pretty much. And
Oh, yeah,
there
for
are
sure.
therapists that do like breathing techniques or like I don't know what it's called, like the mind
EMDR.
tracking. Yeah. And I'm all for EMDR. That's like saved me. But
Mhm.
I think it's like important that some therapists that you go to in your lifetime or like you say like yourself like a coach also focus on your body because you can't move forward unless you release that stored trauma in.
For sure. And people need to understand the word
Yes,
somatic.
that was the
Somatic
word
feeling,
for my
somatic body, somatic, somatic,
yeah.
somatic. Because I didn't know what that was until I started tuning into me, right? And so somatically, what we were talking about before, when I would go to parties and whatever, I was always feeling things. So a lot of times I'll feel things somatically, right? And I'm realizing it's like before we'd blame it on caffeine or we'd blame it on this, or no, it just turns out your body is somatically releasing a bunch of stuff that you have not dealt with, so you don't know what it is.
Yeah. Hmm.
So do you see? I think you're onto something in the sense, as you know too, is that in the body work, especially now that you're having this beautiful child and that you're going to be growing your child, I would be speaking to your child in the
That's what
belly,
my
and
mom
I would tell your
says.
child everything you want to do with the child, and I would talk to the child because the children now are coming out with memories from past
Yeah.
lives. So I wouldn't be surprised that when your child comes, your child is going to have a really great memory of things. And a lot of the children coming in now are so psychic.
Yeah. And like honestly, even if you don't believe in this stuff, because like some people aren't this open-minded, obviously, I think
Uh-huh.
you can still believe in energy and trusting your
For
gut
sure.
and environment.
For
Like
sure.
that's like scientific. So like, what you're
Yes.
saying, like even if someone doesn't believe in this stuff, like they can still come to you because like you pick up on feelings and you're hypervigilant from your trauma and your life experiences. So yeah, I think that's such an interesting like career path to take because a lot of people that have trauma in their life, they don't help others. Like they're like, I'm just moving on. But choosing to help others after you've been through so much is so admirable. So I think it's
Thank
amazing
you.
that you're doing that. I've learned so much today. Honestly, it's just been really amazing to like sit back and like be almost like in a life class today and learn about all the lessons, that you've endured. So thank you for being vulnerable enough and sharing your story. I know a lot of people out there will get something out of this. We are just going to end on our question that we like to ask all of our survivors. Looking back at the very beginning of your story to where you are in this moment, why are you a survivor today?
Mm, because I didn't give up on myself. Because I didn't stop believing in me. I didn't stop showing up for me. Even when I was out of hope, I still managed to find more hope. I still managed to encourage myself, push myself. Thankfully, I think that's part of the neurodivergence is that I always need to know the why.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am never satisfied with something just because you said so.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tell me why you said so, and then I can decide whether or not that makes up to it for me. So I think it's for me never being satisfied with all of the answers or the solutions that people supposedly had to my issues. And it wasn't until I have a machine in my back. They had said, just so you know, this machine is the end of the road for you. And after this, there's no more options for your back pain. And I was like, how dare you? You will never, ever, 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 ever take hope away from me. And that was when it all shifted for me. It was like, how dare you ever try to take my hope away? And how dare you ever try to tell the rest of my story?
Mm-hmm.
And how dare you? And then I was like, so I'm going to defy all odds. So when I went to that professor who told me, there was a professor I went to who told me, the one who told me I was going to break my back and everything like that, and told me that Ehlers-Danlos was an infant syndrome, whatever. I had sent him all the blood tests and I said, oh, so what do you have to say now, Professore? And so it was just like, right? I like a good FU
Yeah.
moment. Like it's a good ending to the story, but I think that no one's ever gonna tell me how my story ends for me, especially if you're not giving me an ending that I want.
Yeah, it's almost like why listen to people that don't have your best interests, that don't respect you, and you've been through so much and you feel like you had so many decades of your life robbed from you because of these
Mhm.
mistakes. And I said, before we started recording that you need to drop your skincare routine because you look amazing, and you told me about the castor oil. So, I just think that's a really important lesson to always continue growing no matter how old you are. Like, if you think that you know everything and that you've like grown to your capacity, then you're not living life the right way. Like, you should be growing up until you're like 80, 100, and so on.
Well, or if you're somebody who says, but my doctor said I can't do this or I have to do this, well, then that's one person's opinion.
Hmm.
And so I encourage you to seek out others. And I'm not talking, it doesn't have to always be other medical opinions, other this, other whatever. I'm talking about look for stuff, and until your soul, until your body goes, oh yeah, that feels right. That feels good. That feels not, oh my God, and the doctor said I can't do this and I'm going to be like this forever and I'm going to have to take this forever and that doesn't feel right to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, it's like I like what you said about like don't let anyone tell you your story, especially people that you're paying. Like, you're paying people, like they might as well be positive if you're paying them. You
Do you know how many doctors look at me and go, I don't believe you? I go, wait, so because I look like this and I don't look the way you think I should
know?
look under pain, you don't believe me? Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Because anyone who's in the amount of pain that you're in wouldn't look like you do.
yeah,
Oh, so again, now you're telling me that you're not for me being positive about
yeah,
my journey because I have to live up to what you think I should look like if I'm in pain.
yeah. It's just, managing your own like beliefs and kind of pushing others' beliefs out of sight, out of
Mm-hmm.
mind, because it's got nothing to do with you. It's none of your business why they're acting the way that they are. But thank you so much, Dina, for being on Surviving with Zoe. Can you tell our audience where they can reach you?
Yes, you can find me on my website, DenaPaduano.com, on Instagram, Dena Paduano, on YouTube, Intuitive Coach Dina, and on TikTok, I'm Intuitive Life Coach Dina.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yay. You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.